when I was asked to do this presentation, I thought, well, let's look at it from the point of view of a pollinator. I mean, people have lots of choices, but the poor old insect doesn't. The insect has to accept what's given to him or her. So the title is Through the Pollinator's Eyes. So whether it's a bumblebee or a honeybee or a hoverfly. So we know that insects have compound eyes, and they see different. Bees see one set of colours and flies see another set of colours. And springtime is a very crucial time for our bumblebees. They overwinter, they have very little food resources. So early in the spring, they need pollen and they need nectar. And one of the easiest forms of plants to give them this resource are willows. Willows are so simple to propagate from hardwood cuttings. I'll just say that I've worked with Minute Tidy Towns for a number of years now, and just on one day they planted 500 cuttings along a stream. And I think what Anne Murray has said, I think riparian corridors are ideal locations for upgrading. So a wide range of willows. Just a little bit caution, some of the willow species are a bit more aggressive than others. Salix caprea is very good. Salix viminalis is sometimes planted as a bioenergy crop and can be almost invasive in a wet environment. So some other important spring resources. I know the next speaker from Castletown House is going to talk about Sarcococca is very good. Trachystemen isn't very well known. It's a herbaceous plant. It can be quite invasive, but it's not in an invasive league like Japanese knotweed, and it flowers in January in my garden. Common primrose is great. Flowering bulbs, well, the right ones, and I'll explain a bit more about that. And I'm all for using native blackthorn and hawthorn. Well, daffodils good for people, bad for pollinators. Well, I mean, the National Biodiversity are damn right in their comments in relation to daffodils. They're plastic flowers. Pollinators will use them, but they want to be pretty desperate to use them. I've just stood in one of these roundabouts for an hour one day, and a Garda car stopped and asked me what was I doing. I said I was doing scientific research, and he left me alone. And I think of that hour in sort of mid-April, I saw one bumblebee come to one of these things. But people like colour. Local authorities use daffodils, and there's the in thing now with tidy town groupings. At one stage, that horrible poplar, Candicans aurora, white with a pink label, with a pink coloration, was planted all throughout rural Ireland. Thankfully, a lot of them got canker and died out, and now daffodils seem to have taken over. But you can add ornamental onions, and that makes it better, because ornamental onions are very bee and bumblebee friendly. And then you can take it a little bit further, and you can add in snowdrops and crocus and muscari. So the question then is to be asked is, make a mass bulb scheme people attractive and pollinator friendly. So as I say, there's lots of possibilities. If you want to keep your daffodils, which cost an awful lot of money, keep your daffodils, but do add in species which pollinators can use. So you can have early flowering species of crocus, hybrids flower in later on, muscari, but make sure you use the right type of muscaris, because some of the muscaris are not pollinator acceptable. Use your daffodils. You can add your alliums in for flower. Cashmere tends to be put in. It's a sort of a blue flowering bulb, but in the Irish climate, unfortunately, don't produce very much nectar, so there's not much use. And then some of the schemes at the moment use tulip species. but they do cost a lot of money. Summer again gives good and bad choices for pollinators, so there's a few slides now. Catmint, salvia. One of my favourite plants on the last slide is calamintha, stachys, and the green manure crop of Phacelia. So that was a catmint, part of a pollinator scheme done in Finglas for Dublin Corporation. That was catmint a year after being planted from P9 size, same size as the plants that were given but donated by Young's. Salvias, again, good plants for bees. Phacelia, well, Phacelia is grown as a green manure crop, and the champions of the Phacelia meadows are the OPW in the Phoenix Park Victorian Kitchen Garden, and the innovative way they've created meadows of Phacelia is absolutely fantastic. I mean, where they sowed after the bloom gardens were taken up and they showed Phacelia meadow, I remember walking through, well, no, not actually walking through it because there were so many bees buzzing, and I hope they're going to do it again this year, and it'd be lovely if they could do an audio recording of the sound of the bees. It's just a fantastic resort. So Phacelia, I mean, and as I say, most of you have got Phacelia seed there to take home with you and try in a small area. Sow it in, well, this crop actually was sown in Kilkenny in May of I think 2015. It was in flower by mid-July, and just beside it, oh sorry, just beside it there is, yeah, there, that's buckwheat. Buckwheat is very much a plant that hoverflies like. In this instance, while it was in full flower, then it was rotivated in because it was sown as a green manure crop. And that was the scheme in Kilkenny that developed along the norther. And somebody might say, well, oh, look at all the plants that died out in the middle here. But the whole purpose of it here was so that people actually walked through the scheme. I'm not in favour of areas where it says keep off the grass, keep out of the planting. And this is a concept that Sussex Prairie Farm developed. Single flower dahlias, and in the raffle prizes there were single flower dahlias. And again, the Phoenix Park is a great resource to go and see pollinator friendly dahlias all around the walls during the summertime. Dandelions in my front garden. My wife and myself have disagreement on this, so I use the front lawn for dandelions and she has the fine lawn with fertiliser and weed killers. So I didn't say that I had two other lawns further down which I use for wildflowers again. I'm a great believer in the best resource for pollinators are the native wildflowers. Well, I mean, if I was an insect and I flew down into one of these bedding schemes, I reached so we know petunias, begonias, geraniums are zilch. So I mean, if I was an insect and I was voting for the European Song Contest, you'd get null, you'd get no, zero. And again, sort of spring primroses, unfortunately pansies. But the way I look at it is, there's no point being negative, let's find solutions or part solutions. So, summer beddings, there's the two Bs, I reckon. Bidens and Bicopa. Bidens is this yellow flower. This is on and fair dues to Dublin Corporation Parks. These are one of their planters, I think near Thomas Street last summer. Bidens, it's yellow, or you can get it with streaks of little yellow flower with streaks of orange and black in it, and hoverflies really like it. And then Bacopa is this plant, and this plant is a planter beside the entrance to the Victorian kitchen garden in Phoenix Park. They don't miss any tricks, you know, these people in the OPW. So this one is loved by bumblebees. It comes in pink and pale blue and white, but it's the white one which bumblebees like. So if you're working with a tidy towns grouping, when you've told them to modify their daffodil planting, then in the summer planting, if they add in bidens and bicopa to their mass planting schemes, they can still, well, maybe if you try and persuade them to reduce their petunias, but if they want to keep their particularly colourful plants, if they add in these species, they can make their schemes pollinator friendly. I worked with Maynooth tidy towns for the past couple of years, and last summer I persuaded them to go a step further. So the main planting in the town square, I persuaded them to cut out bedding plants totally, and we went perennials. So there's a liatris and sedum. So this sedum was in flower late September up to October, this sort of August time, and then we also sowed some phacelia into the pots. It must have worked quite well because they got another gold medal this year. So, making better for pollinators. Well, I'll start at this end. Look at YouTube. There's great information on YouTube on pollinators. Check the Royal Horticultural Society plant list. But beware, not everything which glitters isn't gold. So you need to know your plant species. Like the RHS, Royal Horticultural Society in England plant list says about dahlias, but not all dahlias are pollinator friendly. The large decorative and the cactus dahlias are no use. Use native wildflowers. Hedgerows, again native hedgerows. Just a word of caution, an awful lot of the plant material which is used these days is imported from Belgium and Holland. If you can get native Irish provenance from the Irish woodland schemes, then that's what you should aim for, because if you're planting in non-native, it may flower at the wrong time for the pollinators. Leave your ivy on the trees. It's an amazing resource for hoverflies and wasps and bumblebees in the autumn time, and then the berries are great later on. As many of you might know, for 33 years of my 35 local authority life, I've worked in planning, which was a bit strange for horticulturists, but that was my job. And when I joined Dublin County Council a long number of years ago, I was told that's what I was going to do, so that's what I did. I think planning conditions, and I'm delighted to see what Anne Murray has said in her presentation, planning conditions are the key. If you're going to move forward in a lot of developments, you have to get stronger planning conditions in with your landscape conditions in favour of pollinators. With the trend at the moment for large infrastructural development, strategic developments in which there's consultation with the planning authority and then it goes straight to Bord Pleanála, there's another chink in the armour there. Bord Pleanála has to be supportive of it. I really would hope sometime Bord Pleanála would employ ecologists to deal with these sort of matters. So, where to see pollinator plants? Well, I'm just highlighting the winners of the 27 pollinator award winners with the Phoenix Park, because I was a judge, and I went around surreptitiously on one Sunday afternoon and looked at the 3 that were being shortlisted. I know one or two people said, but nobody actually bet us. I said, my view was tough. So there really is it's going to see the Phoenix Park is how it's done. I mean, they have fantastic staff who are so motivated in terms of bees, providing resources for bees, their educational programs, interpretation. It's one of the best places in in Ireland, and I haven't seen anything like it in Britain either. Then a few other places. Well, Kilkenny is great. I've seen nice bee schemes in Westport. Showed you the one at Finglas. Dundrum Shopping Centre has done a very good positive bee planting scheme. As Anne said, Fernhill and Sandford is an amazing resource. The Olympic Park in Stratford for the Olympics in 2012 has meadows and extensive areas of herbaceous planting. Regent's Park is very interesting, one of the royal parks, in that what they're doing over there is they're keeping elements of their very colourful bedding schemes, but they moved ahead from that, is that, so in the most prominent areas, they're bringing in part of the bedding scheme and cutting it into permanent perennial planting, and they keep their colourful bedding to the front. So the perennial planting to the back, colour plant to the front. So you can plant in your begonias and your geraniums, which are not any use for pollinators, but your perennials at the back hit the button. Penstorp in Norfolk is a really nice place to go to. It's an old gravel workings that were flooded, and it's an amazing resource. Fantastic website. Very interesting idea. If you go into Penstorp, you go to the cafe, and there's a big blackboard, just a simple blackboard, and every week they write up on the blackboard seeing bumblebees, particular types of moths, different types of butterflies. It's low tech, but anybody coming in the cafe can just look up and see, and then they say what parts of the estate you can see it on. Everything doesn't have to be high tech these days. Sussex Prairie Farm has been created over the past 15 years, I think. It's perennial meadows where you're encouraged to walk through, and then Leiden, Holland, is where I first saw. So that's who I am. If anybody wants to communicate with me, that's the email. My presentation will be downloadable as a PDF, so anybody can use it. This plant here is one of my favourites for butterflies. We think that insects follow rules that are in books, but they don't, because they're not able to read that well. So really it behoves us to observe, and that's what I've been doing for a long number of years. I've been observing what plants insects like and what time of the year they like them. And butterflies won't go on this plant until about the 3rd week of August, till frost, and then the rutabaga again. Okay.